The Sarcastic Enchantress. Part 1. The Honey Duchess and the Footwear Repairman. In a country whose name we've forgotten, there dwelled the most wonderful duchess that's ever been smelled. Her sweat and sweet breath left a scent of fresh honey. Her bathwater, bottled, was smuggled for money. Her name was Paulina, and yet she was known as Queen Honeysuckle, who governed alone. The potentates journeyed from lands far and near, with frivolous gifts and ridiculous beards. They cried, "Queen Honeysuckle, your sweetness divine could widen my smile by a mile. Please be mine." She said, "I'm not a queen, and I won't be your property. Also, this whole honeysuckle thing bothers me. What about Duchess Bench Press? Reads a lot. Or try Duchess Balance the Budget. Why not?" "Never mind. Hey, stop using that prince for a chair. And you, weird old beardo, quit licking my hair." So day after day she rejected these men, who never thereafter were heard from again. It was said when they learned that they'd never be married to this luscious duchess, they built monasteries. An orphan from birth, Boris wandered the nation, supported himself doing shoe restoration, and he was so nimble and skilled at repairing them, he could mend shoes with the owner still wearing them. Dance slippers fixed without missing a beat, and army boots during attack and retreat. At banquets and pageants he thrilled the elite under tables, bedazzling the flaps on their feet. And when finished working, he'd rest in the glade and eat of the mushrooms that bloom in the shade. He'd listen to birdsong and chattering squirrels, watch jackrabbits flirting with plump bunny girls. Or really, it's more like the other way round. He listened to sights and envisioned the sounds. One day, munching fungus, he heard with his nose a sweet, furry purple, melodious glow. As the hairs on his neck rose to drink sweet sensation, he tasted vibrations of salty frustration. "I'm sick of aristocrats sniffing around like rough truffle hunters and slobbering hounds. I get clobbered with boatloads of gifts, bridal showered, compared to fine pastries and sweetmeats and flowers. And incense, I get so incensed I could yell. Since when's it your business the way that I smell? Haven't you ever heard of a personal scent? So I must experiment, work to invent some potion or lotion of moss, muck, and clover to coat my aroma with potent deodorant." Like all speech in this story, the point is preserved, but poetically cleansed of the four-letter words. She was thrashing and gnashing her teeth as she ranted, and Boris's eyebrows were dancing, enchanted, and yet, though he strained, he was frozen. The vagrant was trapped till she'd passed with her radiant fragrance. He sniffed and he searched and he followed his nostrils. He tripped and he lurched, grunted, "This is impossible. The woodland is dense with these weeds tart and dank, and the flowers pump scents that are smutty and rank." It triggered his deep isolation and pain, and also that fungus had poisoned his brain, as if all the clients that ever had laughed at him, kicked him when down, Mom and Dan who abandoned him, all of the maidens who kissed him then hissed at him, and even Santa who never had listed him, phantasm faces were laughing at Boris, obnoxiously thwarting him, even this forest. He picked up an axe, closed his eyes, and got cracking and chopping and whacking and sobbing and hacking, cried scent of a sound, lost and found, and he sniffed, but no answer came back, not a whisper or whiff. The constables came, and they wrapped him in chains and arrested poor Boris for deforestation. They laughed, "Like perfume, do you? Here's something pungent, the odors that stew in the grodiest dungeon." Darker than night, it was seething and squirming with short furry wormies and pink-eyed white vermin, the seconds like minutes, the minutes like years. By noon he had grown a full beard soaked with tears. A maid brought him borscht of beets, cabbage, and rabbit. The mice squeaked in hunger. He sighed, "You can have it." Somewhere in the dark he heard chipping and chirping. The rodents were carving and chomping and working. They crafted a harp and pulled worms for the strings. Then they plucked out a melody, started to sing. "What's your name, fragrant maiden? We'd never have guessed it." Just sounded like squeaking, but he got the message. So these were the fops who voraciously swarmed in, and some bitter force in the borscht had transformed them. They gave him the harp, and he plucked out a song, and he played it till one of the maids came along. She muttered, "The Duchess keeps humming your tune. You're summoned to come up and strum in her room." She led him through labyrinths of lavender halls to a bathroom with lavish, immaculate stalls. "First you'll bathe and be shaved, then some trendy apparel." "Forget it," he grunted, "and don't touch my hair." "What's that song?" asked the Duchess. "It's stuck in my head." "First tell me your name." "It's Paulina," she said. "Well, Paulina," he tenderly strummed, "I don't care if you're scum or the freshest princess of Bel-Air. Leave this clutter behind. Marry me, live out there. We'll have nothing, but nothing's a lot if we share. It sounds stupid, I know, but I've learned from footwear that a boot and a slipper can still be a pair. The tune touched her deeply, and blushing she bloomed. Her pulse thudded, flooding the room with perfume. Her hair slipped its ribbons and ruffled above. Her cap hovered up like a fluttering dove. Polina and Boris got married that day, same day they met, yes, maybe carried away. They didn't run off. She asked him to move in, and their quickening pulses resulted in twins. 2 daughters with brawn, brains, and beauty as well, neither one blessed or cursed with unusual smells. In this portrait, Irina is left of the chair, and that's Olga in back with the scary black hair. Polina gave Boris a solid gold harp that made sharp, steely scales. Their 3rd child was a carp. And he made quite a stink, and he drank like a fish, so they freed him to live in the sea as he wished. Well, no one is certain of what happened next. Some such. There's a gap in the text. Polina had vanished. The realm smelled so bland that the flowers went pale and the bees left the land. And thus we are missing a narrative link, for the berries they'd squished up for ink went extinct. When Cole's script was invented, the first written news, they'd been ditched by the Duke in their dingy old shoes. But when all hope was lost, there came new inspiration. The daughters matured, launching shrewd innovations. To be continued in Part 2, The Industrious Double Duchess.